All right, welcome back to the show. It is Richie McCormack here with you right through until 10 p.m. tonight. The one thing we didn't really touch upon on the show so far tonight, at least anyway, is Ireland's win this morning over the New Zealand Māori. Keith Earls captaining the side to victory, making it 2 wins from 4 on the tour of New Zealand so far. Basically, we're going to win the World Cup. Stephen Kisbey-Green, our resident South African rugby nerd, joins us in studio. Stephen, thanks for coming in this evening.
How's it going, Richie?
Your take on that win this morning, because I think, as Mick mentioned during the news round, there was a lot of negative, I guess, feeling after the first game against the Māori All Blacks, and that there were injuries, there were questions over Jonathan Sexton's fitness, and then we had an opening defeat, and that was followed obviously by the first test defeat, so everybody was a little bit subdued after a week or so in New Zealand. Things have kind of changed. We're rocking and rolling after this win this morning.
Yeah, it's amazing how the entire narrative of a series changes in 72 hours. Before Saturday, it was all doom and gloom. Everyone was saying, "Oh, we're going to get whitewashed," and now Ireland are looking like the best team in the world at the moment.
Don't say that. They'll get text.
It's typical Ireland.
53106.
Typical Ireland doing incredibly well a year out of the World Cup. Now, look, the Ireland 15 performance this morning was, last night for the New Zealand listeners, was something special purely because it showed how the team can learn and adapt based off of a week and a half of actual training. Like Kieran Frawley's performance in particular was a standout for me. He bossed that Irish back line, and he showed that in about just over a week he can go from no international 10 experience to being one of the way he attacked the Māori defence. He took the hits. He was robust. He was exactly what you wanted an Irish 10 to be in the mould of a Johnny Sexton before Johnny Sexton retires. So I'm not saying that now is the time that you want Kieran Frawley to play Test match rugby. He's still a little bit far out from that, but he just showed that he's got that in him. He's got that ability to take the bull by the horns and actually learn and develop on the fly. And that and some other key performances that I'm sure we'll touch on ahead of Saturday. It kind of impressed me a bit on how the Irish took to the All Blacks, the Māori All Blacks. It showed that there's a bit more development in the side than under previous managements. They're able to learn and quickly.
Yeah, because one of the things we saw about the test side and the lack of changes, I guess, or the paucity of changes between one test to the next, was that maybe Andy Farrell was a little bit intransigent and didn't want to make too many changes and was maybe stuck in his ways, is probably a bit strong, but he relied upon who he's relying upon. What these two matches, particularly the second this morning, have done is show that there is a bit of depth there, and there are a bunch of players who, as you mentioned, even if they aren't necessarily 100% test players at the moment, certainly have a case to be made by the time the World Cup rolls around in, just over 12 months' time.
Yeah, I think it maybe they won't overtake the current test squad. I think the test squad that played on Saturday is largely going to be...
They're certainly going to offer backup.
Exactly. Yeah. It's largely what they're going to do. Like you've got Kieran Frawley there to back up Johnny Sexton if Johnny Sexton gets injured for the quarterfinal, which is unfortunately a highly likelihood if Sexton plays the majority of the pool stage matches.
What happens with Leinster next year, though? Isn't that key? Like, if we think that Frawley, and Andy Farrell thinks that Frawley is the key to... Maybe Joey Carberry remains the number 10 on the bench, but if Johnny doesn't make it through the World Cup, maybe Frawley is looked at as the starting 10. We don't know where that is, but we need next season to see Frawley play top-class rugby at number 10, don't we?
But no, do you, though?
That's what I would think. I mean, if it's not going to be Ross Byrne or Harry Byrne, then...
But where's the argument coming in that a 10 has to play 10 all of his life, and a 10 has to be...
It's not that they have to play 10 to it's that we need to see whether, and Andy Farrell needs to see whether he's good enough to play. He's good enough to at 10 to play at 10.
Well, we've seen it in the Maoris.
Two games against, let's face it, like it's against a representative side. Well, yeah, but it's one of the best representative side in the world, probably, but still,
like it's one of the most difficult challenges, just to step below Test match rugby, to play against the Māori All Blacks at 10, a position where he's not theoretically not familiar with based off his position, his time at Leinster, even though he has played a couple of games at 10 at Leinster. And he's proven that he can do it. Even in that first test, when Ireland were, in all honesty, a shambles against the Māori All Blacks, Frawley had moments where he took to gain line. He showed promise at 10. Now, what I'm saying is, if you look at, hypothetically, Handré Pollard, he plays almost no game time at 10 at club level in France. But he's South Africa's first choice number 10. It's the ability to play 10, but also the ability to play 12 that makes Frawley a unique prospect for Ireland going forward. He can be that player that has the ability to play 10, but doesn't always play all of his games at 10. He can play 10 for Ireland without necessarily having played any game at 10 for Leinster.
Why has that fear been there from an Irish perspective, do you think, about adaptability and having to specialise?
Can I just say, though, and I'll let you answer, you take someone like Pollard, is a far more accomplished and experienced, and we know what he offers, whereas I think there's still question marks about Frawley at the top level. And we're talking about replacing Johnny Sexton at World Cup here and bypassing 3 or maybe 4 out halves that we thought were ahead of them who've played there, and we know what they offer at that position. I'm not saying you're wrong here. I'm just saying that I would like to see it, and I'm sure Andy Farrell would too, whether you say it's relevant or not. I think he would like to see him play some Champions Cup games at that position.
Of course. I mean, I don't think Frawley's had too much Champions Cup level matches at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But
he's got Henshaw and Ringrose
exactly.
It's the centre partnership. And it's not exactly easy to break into either.
And Ross Byrne has made almost no mistakes for Leinster. He's done nothing wrong really. So you can't automatically drop him. But where I'm coming from though is it's not necessarily he needs to play. He doesn't need to make up for Sexton immediately. He doesn't have to be the starting Irish number 10 as soon as Sexton retires. Joey Carberry can easily fill in that role. He's done very little wrong in an Irish jersey to warrant automatic dropping. But what Frawley offers is that Sexton style, and Carberry doesn't. Carberry doesn't attack the gain line. He's not as robust. He's not as defensively sound as Johnny Sexton is. Whereas Kieran Frawley, because he's got that ability to play 12 and even 13 or even fullback at a push, he's got the ability to play all positions in the back line, but that also gives him the skills and the sort of strength that those other positions give him, like that defence, like that being able to front up to Josh Ioane and actually take his game to him, take a big hit from a Papali'i or whoever and get back up. Carberry's shown that he doesn't necessarily have that ability to take that big hit, so he plays a little bit deeper. He doesn't take the hits. He's got a different style to Johnny Sexton, and there's nothing wrong with Ireland playing a style that suits Joey Carberry. If Joey Carberry's the way you want to go, by all means, but he doesn't play like Sexton, so don't force him to play like Sexton. Frawley has the ability to play like Sexton.
Is it that a kind of adaptability that gets him maybe on the plane then next year?
I would say so, yeah.
The fact that he can play at centre and the fact that he can cover multiple positions if needs be, because that's when you're heading off in a World Cup environment and injuries are going to come thick and fast because of the nature of the tournament itself. You're going to need players who are a bit adaptable like that.
There's also nothing wrong with starting on the bench. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being a bench player for the rest of your career. No, but see,
lack of ambition might play into it a little bit.
See, but that's where where I think
South
Ireland
African first choice props come on after 55 minutes and kill everybody.
It's a 23-man game now, guys. The idea of back in the day where if you don't come on because you're a bench player, you only play 5 minutes or whatever. That's the way Ireland play rugby at the moment, and I feel like Andy Farrell, Joe Schmidt, Leo Cullen, even Johan van Graan when he was at Munster, they didn't use their bench at all properly. When you got Tyke Furlong coming off at 75 minutes, you've mismanaged your bench. Because if Tyke Furlong is not using up all of his ability and all of his fitness and giving everything after 55 minutes and then getting replaced for 25 minutes for the rest of the game, have you gotten the most out of Tyke Furlong? I don't think so. And it also doesn't help the next man up. It doesn't help with the depth when you're getting your next man up only getting 5 minutes of game time at a Champions Cup level.
You mentioned Frawley, obviously. Is there anybody else that stood out to you over these last couple of games against the Māori particularly who'll be putting their hands up as regards selection for a World Cup squad in a year's time?
I think Timoney has been particularly impressive. He's found his form again. Gavin Coombs is getting there, but he's still got a little bit more that I'd like to see personally.
What would you like to see from Coombs then?
It's that dog, that fight. He had it for a while, then he lost it, and he doesn't seem to be as physically dominant as he used to be. I want to see him get back to that. Maybe try and get it, take the jersey off of Tyke Byrne. I do think Tyke Byrne's a sort of a more physical, slightly slower loose forward than he is a lock. So I kind of want to see him move out that side. Otherwise, yeah, I've been impressed with Niall Scannell.
Okay.
Coming in off as late as he did.
Yeah. Really late notice, yeah.
Yeah. And he sort of looked like he hasn't missed a step. He's been slotted in there perfectly. And
what about Larmour? Is he anyway back to the form that we know he has in him before his injuries?
He had a good game this morning. Unfortunate yellow card, but
you just want to see more of those games, I guess.
Yeah. He hasn't strung them together.
Injury has played a huge part in that, though.
Oh yeah, no, of course. But you've also got to look at the games that he comes back for. He comes back for the big games. I want to see him play some URC matches. I want to see him play some easier games to help blood in a bit more of that, like get back to full fitness. You can't just come back after every injury and play. It's the same with Carberry. Whenever he comes back off an injury, he's straight into the Champions Cup.
That's because Irish players only play big games.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
I know.
Problem.
We've every reason to be confident, though, going into Saturday, considering last Saturday, considering the fact that we've learned and progressed and moved on from that first defeat to the Māori, that, you know, there's enough growth within this squad.
It doesn't dismiss Ireland's achievement or potential achievement last Saturday or potential achievement this Saturday. It doesn't in any way take away from it to suggest what I think is self-evident, that this is the worst New Zealand team I can ever remember.
The fact that there's so many questions about Ian Foster going into this
so many questions. There's so many. They are not replacing a legendary group of players with another. It's like the Dubs, right? Like it's like you would still think that Dublin can beat anybody on their day, but they're not replacing Jack McCaffrey with another Jack McCaffrey. They're not replacing Bernard Brogan with another Bernard Brogan, and so on. Like, you know, there's hundreds of names I could list there. You know, that's just normal, and it's the same with New Zealand. Have had this unprecedented run for, God, I don't know, 15, 20 years, that, you know, they just got so many great teams in a row. This isn't one. And we have the chance to go and beat them, and that's what we have to do. Like, I mean, and that's what we have to go and take that chance and believe in ourselves. And the one thing I will always say about this Irish rugby team, and maybe the Johnny Sexton era, if you want to call it that way, is that they do believe in themselves. They do. They will take an opportunity if it's there to go and win. They won't be thinking, oh, imagine it'll be a miracle if we go and beat New Zealand. They're not like that. You know, whether they actually go and do it or not, or turn up on the day, is a separate point again, I think. But, you know, I think there's a huge chance on Saturday. Given what we saw last week, it's almost hard to think that New Zealand, you know, Ireland were the better team. And I know that wasn't the case just 2 weeks ago, but it feels like we've played ourselves into form. It's a lot harder to go flick the switch the other way that New Zealand have to do this time.
But even 2 weeks ago, Ireland were not worse than New Zealand when they lost. What New Zealand did was capitalised on the opportunities that Ireland gave New Zealand, whereas Ireland didn't capitalise on their own opportunities. Like, they had the ability, they had the opportunities, they had the play. So I do think it is Ireland's game to lose. I'm not going to say that they're going to win, but I think that if they do lose, it's their own insecurities that get them out of it. That get their result.
Interesting. Stephen Kisbey-Green
here. What are we doing here? New Zealand are going to win this by 30 points. Come on, everybody, cop on to yourself. Do not put this out of us suggesting that Ireland are definitely going to win next weekend.
Mick McCarthy, Stephen Kisbey-Green, thank you.